G'day, Dogman here. Welcome to my cinema experience. This is where I take you on a journey through my life as experienced in going to the cinema, how it affected me, how it changed me, what were my memories of significant movies. And that takes us to a time where a young boy, that's me, would have been around 6 years old. And I remember there was a Saturday morning cartoon show and they were having the making of Star Wars on it. And I was so excited because the hype around Star Wars was growing. I remember going to school and kids would have pictures of Han and Chewbacca and I don't know, they got them out of the Wheaties pack or something like that. It was like Star Wars going everywhere. And so this making of Star Wars, I was so excited I couldn't sleep the night before. I got up, I think it started at like 7 in the morning or 6 in the morning. I was up at 4 in the morning waiting to watch the making of Star Wars. And I just watched it in awe. I was like, this is amazing.
On the planet Earth, not too long ago, a rehearsal for one of Star Wars' most exciting scenes.
No, it's too late.
George Lucas.
I think one of the key factors in the success is that it's a positive film. It has heroes and villains, and that it essentially is a fun movie to watch. It's been a long time since people have been able to go to the movies and see a sort of straightforward, wholesome, fun adventure.
In Star Wars, Lucas wanted to recapture the spirit of romance and adventure he found in the movies of the past. The kind of films that ran endlessly on television when he was growing up. Sir Alec Guinness, a knight playing a knight, brought to the Star Wars set a theatrical tradition that inspired the youthful production company. In this, his first appearance as Obi-Wan Ben Kenobi, he rescues Luke Skywalker from the Sand People. But for scenes requiring starts and stops, part of the magic becomes transparent.
You know, get off the farm and go have a little adventure.
The adventure into which Luke Skywalker is thrust is derived from World War II dogfights as shown in Hollywood films.
I so wanted to see Star Wars, but for some reason, my parents didn't think that was a suitable movie for a 6-year-old. Don't worry, I eventually got to see it, but we won't be talking about that this episode. I saw it in the cinema, but not yet. So my parents thought a more appropriate movie that came out at the same time, roughly, as Star Wars. It was competing for the box office and failed. Who could compete against Star Wars? And this is Disney. This is the movie Pete's Dragon I'm talking about. Now, must have seen some ads on TV, and it was pretty unique because there was live action film with cartoon animation mixed in. And I was like, wow, that looks so cool. I want to go and see this film. So this is one of the earliest films that I went to. Now, I can't really remember much, it's probably a good thing that my parents didn't take me to Star Wars when I was 6 because of the fact that I can't really remember much of Pete's Dragon, but I can remember, I think it was April 1979, Star Wars was still in the cinema, in one cinema, I think, in Melbourne. And that's where we went to watch it before it left the cinemas altogether. And I can clearly remember that experience. So I would have been, in 1979, I was 7 years old. So just that little bit older made me able to enjoy Star Wars that much. But Pete's Dragon, I can't remember much, to be honest. I can remember going. I can remember being excited to go. What I can remember was being fascinated about the animation overlapping live action. It was unique. I hadn't seen it before. I thought it was really fun. It brought me into a fantasy world. I remember thinking I wanted to have a pet dragon like Pete. So I did a rewatch on Disney Plus, and you know, the pace of these films is so different than today. This movie is a bit of a musical where they break out in song and dance. Not really a choice that they'd make these days. And I think most people find musicals a little weird, that you're doing this serious drama and acting, and all of a sudden you break out in song. It just takes you away from reality. I mean, this is a fantasy. Who really has a dragon as a pet? But the whole concept of musicals I always found weird. Unless it's done in a certain way, like Moulin Rouge is probably the most successful musical, the musical I've enjoyed the most. But generally, I don't get them. But the animation is done really well. It's pre-CGI. There's a scene where, you know, the dragon swims underwater and looks like a torpedo hitting a boat, and I think it's really well done. And I do remember seeing that in the cinema, that scene. But as I watched the rewatch, I also realized it's quite dark in some of the concepts. Like, this kid's being abused by his foster parents. It's really quite bad. And to me, that's a harder concept to grasp than anything in Star Wars. You see, Star Wars is clearly fantasy, and there's a clear delineation between the good guys and the bad guys. That was easy for a young kid to get their head around. Whereas you look at Pete's Dragon, and all of a sudden it's a little confusing, because the people who are supposed to be good are actually bad. That's the parents. The parents are supposed to be good, but they're the bad guys in this movie. And that can throw a kid off, going, what, is that how some kids live? Like, is this a thing? Or if the child is actually experiencing that, then the movie's not going to really, it's not really going to help them, I don't think. Because a magical dragon isn't the answer. Because that's the answer in this movie, to having abusive parents, having a magical dragon. Can you see how it's a little bit mixed up? So that's a little funny how parents can look, oh, Star Wars is PG, oh, I don't want to take my young 6-year-old to Star Wars. I'll take them to this Disney movie instead. Whereas the Disney movie has actually got a darker subtext to the overall movie. Interesting. Anyway, the IMBD, Internet Movie Database, says that this movie was released in Australia on the 13th of April, 1978. So it just turned 6. They rate it as a 6.3 out of 10. You know, I think that's about right, about average. The story is a little weak, but the animation is fun, and it does bring you into this fantasy world, especially if you're a youngster. But it's a little dark, as I've already talked about. The blurb here on IMBD says, an orphan boy and his magical dragon come to town with his abusive adoptive parents in pursuit. There you go, abusive parents. What an interesting topic for children to be watching. It was nominated for 2 Oscars. There's 1978 nominee for Best Music Original Song. That was for the song Candle in the Water. And also Best Music Original Score and its adaptation, or Best Adaptation Score. That's what it was nominated for. All up, it says that there was 6 nominations in total across different organisations, award organisations. They did a remake. I haven't seen it. It's all done with CGI, animation, etc. Now, I don't know if Disney is remaking these old classics because it doesn't have any new ideas, or they think the story is worthy to do a remake. I don't know. I think it's probably the former. I think they're running out of ideas and they look back and go, let's remake this one. And it gives them a starting point. But anyway, did you see this movie as a child? Did you see this in the cinema? Let me know. Write a comment. Say good day. Tell me what you thought about this movie. Anyway, that's it for me. Signing off. Another episode. Have a good one.